All right, so for this next section of videos, I'm going to show you how to palpate on the scapula. We know that the scapula is a bone that sits next to the rib cage. Its function is to really provide a lot of stability and allow us to do dynamic movement for our upper extremities. So to start with the scapula, I like to find the medial border, which I cupped here along this individual, the client here in this case. I work my way down and I can find the inferior angle of the scapula here. If the arm gets raised, I'm able to feel into the lateral border of the scapula. I can also find, I'm along the medial border here. I can find the spine of the scapula here. I know that I'm on the spine because it feels like a bony prominence. If I were to go above or below, I'm feeling muscle bellies and not bone. Next, if I walk along the spine of the scapula, I come across here to the acromion process. So I can palpate here and feel the acromion process attaches with the spine of the scapula. It wraps around on the head of the humerus, and I know that I'm above that because I'm superior to the head of the humerus. So for this next portion, I'm going to show you how to palpate the acromioclavicular joint. You saw earlier how I was able to palpate the acromion. I'm able to find this individual's clavicle, and right where the two come together, I feel the acromioclavicular joint by locating and feeling a divot between, here it is, a divot between the two structures. So I can feel the joint articulating from the clavicle and the acromion to come together at this spot. For the coracoid process, first I like to find the acromioclavicular joint. I come over a couple of inches here, and then deep underneath the clavicle, I can feel a bony prominence. That is the coracoid process. To make sure that I'm on the correct location, I oftentimes have somebody kind of hunch their shoulders so that I can feel that bone kind of move, and then I have them sit back up. And as long as my hand is still on a bony spot and not deviating into muscles, I know that I've hit the coracoid process. Okay, so for C7, that's an area that's more readily palpatable by OTs in the spinal column. So I have the person sit up nice and tall. I can feel down the spinal processes of their vertebrae here. And then on the one that juts out the most, that is C7. If you have the person flex their neck, so bend your head forward, I'm able to kind of still stay on that spot and go ahead and pull your head back. And there I am still on C7. So for C7, you kind of already saw it in a couple other videos, but you can locate it by the acromioclavicular joint, walking along the entire length of the clavicle to the sternoclavicular joint. The manubrium is located midline in your body. It is the point in which bilateral clavicles come together. So you can palpate that bilaterally. And then, so you can palpate that bilaterally, and you can feel here is the manubrium. For the sternum, you're gonna locate that, it's a midline of the body. It's where your ribs come together with to form your chest. You've already located the manubrium, which is the superior most part of that those three bones. It's where the clavicles come together. The sternum is right inferior to that. For this assignment, it is acceptable to have clothing on in order to palpate this structure. Right at the bottom of the manubrium, as you inch your way down, you'll also feel your xiphoid process. So the manubrium and the xiphoid process are important structures in OT because a lot of times if you have somebody who's in a coma, you might do sternal rubs, so you'll need to know where that is. And then we talked a lot about swallowing, right, and the choking mechanisms, and then if you ever have to give the Heimlich to someone, you need to locate their xiphoid process. So to locate the humeral head, oftentimes I like to find the scapula first, work my way along the spine, over the acromion, and then if I come down inferior to the acromion, that is where my humeral head is. I feel it, and I feel how tight that joint is inside this glenoid cavity, and with the structures and all the ligaments that are around the acromion and this humeral head. If you're ever working with somebody who has a sublux shoulder, this is where you'll feel that head of that humerus is slightly inferiorly dislocated, which is what we call a subluxation. And to locate the bicipital groove, you need to find the head of the humerus. On the head of the humerus, there are two raised structures. And in between those, if you were to rub perpendicular to those structures, you will locate, can you sit up tall for me? You'll locate and feel a space, a divot between those. That's where the long head biceps tendon runs and a couple other structures, and that is your bicipital groove.